Hey, group leaders, how are you doing today? Hopefully, you are adjusting to this brand new world as we're all isolated in our homes. Today, I thought we'd give you an update via Zoom. And I have a brand new person I'd like to introduce to you today. Her name is Carrie Jones, and she's our new ministry groups coordinator. So, Carrie, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Troy. Well, my family's been a part of Beulah now for 8 years. And during that time, my husband and I have been involved in various leadership roles with our MSC, small groups. And more recently, in the past 4 years, we've teamed up with a couple families who are seeking to understand what it means to be the tangible kingdom here on earth. And so today, when we talk about how to love your neighbor during COVID-19, I'm eager to share some different ideas and what possibilities there might be for God to use you in your neighborhood.
Yeah, because I think it's true. We find ourselves in a very unique point in history, and it begs the question: how do we live our lives as Jesus followers in all this? Because we know that there's so many stipulations that are put in place. Like you can only be so far away from the people around you. I think it's like 2 meters, and as Canadians we say it's a hockey stick. So what I've done is I've just carried my hockey stick everywhere, and I just swing it around. And if anybody gets too close, they get slashed. And it makes a mess in the grocery store, but people stay away, which is kind of nice. But Jesus told us to love our neighbors. And he told us in Matthew chapter 22, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. And this is the first and greatest commandment. And the second commandment is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, well, and we know that the word neighbor doesn't have to be limited to your next door neighbor or, even everybody in your cul-de-sac. But right now, in this season, well, we're pretty much stuck at home and in our neighborhoods. So what kind of impact might God want to have with you and your neighbors? So how does this play out when maybe I don't even know my neighbor's name? And so
Well,
we have some starting points for you for
yeah.
how to love your neighbor during COVID-19.
So maybe let's just talk about three things that we wrote down here. The first thing is maybe start with prayer. Maybe just like the Bless network that we often talk about, the Bless framework, network. We just start with prayer. Begin your day with prayer. Just asking God, how do you want me to meet my neighbors? How do you want me to just hang out with my neighbors and socially interact? Of course, at a socially acceptable distance, but how do you want me to do that today? Maybe the second thing that you could do is just walk your neighborhood. The doctors say that it is okay to walk outside and be the friendliest person on your block. Maybe take some time and sit on a bench as people walk by, maybe strike up a conversation with them. You might be surprised how many people are willing to chat with you during this time of isolation.
Yeah, and if you're lucky enough to come across another human being out there, all you got to do is say hello and introduce yourself. So
Yeah.
I've got a couple very basic questions just to get your conversation started. So, hey, I'm Carrie. I live in the brown house down the street and we haven't met before. So what's your name? And once you've had that conversation with them, when you get home, grab a pen and paper and write down the person's name along with a little description so that you can remember them. And next you see them, you can follow up on whatever it was that you guys talked about that time. Or maybe it's, how has COVID-19 impacted your family? Do you guys need help with anything, like getting groceries? You're just looking to start a basic conversation. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering.
So, group leaders, thank you so much for what you do. We so appreciate you. I hope that as we look back on this crisis, as history writes, as we're writing history right now, that in 10 years from now, we would not look back and see the church that just sat around waiting for this thing to be over. But we'd be a church that's proactive. We'd be group leaders that are proactive in encouraging our group members to get out there and impacting the people that we live beside, the people who might be alone, who live within 30 feet from you. So we encourage you to be the church, live out Jesus in practical ways. Thank you so much for all you do. I can't wait to hear some amazing stories of how you're impacting your neighbors in Jesus' name throughout this COVID-19 crisis. Thank you. Have a great week.